This year just your sister's family. My dad texted me like I was an afterthought. His words weren't cruel in tone, but the exclusion cut sharper than if he had screamed. They didn't need to raise their voices anymore. Silence and a single sentence had become their favorite weapons. I typed back 2 words, "Enjoy then," and set my phone down with trembling hands. Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa, I'm 27 years old and I never thought betrayal could feel so ordinary, so quiet, like a knife slipped between ribs when you weren't looking. Tell me what's worse, being mocked loudly or being erased softly. I stared at the blue bubbles on my screen until my vision blurred. Thanksgiving was always my favorite holiday. The table, the laughter, the smell of roasted turkey, but every year the seat meant for me seemed smaller, colder. This time they didn't even bother pretending. They chose my sister. And in that moment my heart whispered a dangerous truth. They don't know me at all. Because while they thought they were cutting me out of a family dinner, they were also cutting themselves out of something far larger. They had no idea I wasn't the poor, desperate Alyssa they remembered. They had no idea that in the years they mocked me for never making it, I had quietly built an empire. A $5 million mountain ranch, perched in the pines like a secret crown I never showed them. So I made a decision. A cold, deliberate one. If I wasn't invited to their table, then I'd build my own. Longer, wider, overflowing with people they had ignored for years. Cousins, friends, distant relatives, even neighbors who had once been denied by my parents' selective invitations. My phone lit up as I began sending messages. Dinners at my place this year. No exclusions. Bring everyone. By the time the golden light of evening stretched across the peaks, my ranch echoed with voices, music, and the kind of laughter that didn't need my parents' approval to feel real. And when I finally posted the photos, dozens of smiling faces against the backdrop of endless mountains, my phone began to vibrate. Ring, ring, ring. The calls wouldn't stop. And for the first time I didn't answer. The phone lit up over and over on the granite countertop, each vibration rattling against the stone like an impatient knock at the door. Dad calling. Mom calling. Dad again. I watched the screen glow and fade like it was alive, begging me to pick up. But for once I didn't. Instead, I poured another glass of wine and let my cousin Mia's laughter drown out the buzzing. She clinked her glass to mine, her cheeks flushed from the cold mountain air. Best Thanksgiving I've ever been to, she grinned. I smiled back, but inside something darker curled. A mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. Because the truth was, I still wanted them to want me. I still wanted my father to text me, "Come home, Alyssa." I still wanted my mother to say she was proud of me. And yet when I looked around at the dining hall I had built inside the ranch, wood beams soaring overhead, candles glowing against stone walls, a table big enough to seat 50, I realized this was home. Not their selective, shrinking table. The phone buzzed again. This time I let it ring until voicemail. Then curiosity won. I tapped to listen. "Alyssa," my father's voice was sharp, strained. "We need to talk. Call me back. Right now. Not please. Not we miss you. Just demand. Command." I almost laughed. I could picture them, my parents sitting at their polished mahogany table, only half filled with my sister's family. No chorus of laughter, no overflow of stories. Just quiet. Awkward. And now, thanks to the photos, the knowledge that they weren't the center of everything anymore. That I had carved out my own orbit. I didn't call back. Instead, I posted a video, kids running through the snow outside, their breath turning white in the crisp air, my dog bounding after them, everyone cheering as fireworks lit the mountainside. I captioned it simply, "Grateful." The comments flooded in. "Wish I was there. Looks magical. This is what family should feel like." And under all that noise the phone began buzzing again, harder, faster, like my parents could claw through the glass and reach me if they tried enough times. But I just sipped my wine and whispered to myself, "You wanted me gone. Remember?" The calls kept coming, relentless, like a storm hammering against a locked door. I let most of them slide into silence, but when my sister's name appeared, something inside me froze. Wait. The golden child. The reason for the text. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but curiosity, or maybe masochism, made me swipe. "Finally," she breathed, her voice dripping with mock annoyance. "You think you're funny? Posting all those photos like some billboard ad for yourself. I didn't answer right away. I let her words hang in the air, heavy, ugly. The sounds of laughter and music from the party spilled faintly into the background, and I knew she could hear it too. You weren't invited this year for a reason, Rachel continued, her tone tightening. Dad thought it would be better if... If what? I cut in, my voice calm, steady. If I disappeared? If you could finally play perfect daughter without me in the room. Her silence told me everything. I looked out through the wide glass windows of my ranch. The mountains stretched endlessly, snow dusting their ridges under the moonlight. My guests were singing now, their voices echoing against the high beams of the dining hall. And yet here I was, chained once more to my sister's shadow. You don't get it, she snapped, the mask cracking. They didn't want this. You showing off, rubbing money in their faces. You're embarrassing them. I laughed then, low, sharp and honest. Embarrassing them? Rachel, for years they embarrassed me. Sat me at the end of the table, compared every choice I made to your perfect little life. I wasn't good enough, not smart enough, not successful enough. Now suddenly I'm too much? Well, I'm exactly what they created. There was a pause. I could almost hear her grinding her teeth. Then, softer, almost fearful. They're furious, Alyssa. You don't know what you've started. I ended the call without another word. My chest rose and fell as silence reclaimed the room, only interrupted by another vibration almost immediately after. This time it was Dad again. I stared at the phone, heart pounding, knowing that if I picked up, it wouldn't just be a call. It would be a war. And maybe for once I was ready. I let the phone buzz 3 more times before I finally answered. My thumb trembled, but my voice was steady when I said, "Hello? Alyssa." My father's voice was clipped, low, like he was trying to hold something back. "What do you think you're doing?" I looked around my ranch. The glowing fire in the stone hearth, the long wooden table crowded with people who were laughing freely, the windows reflecting golden light against the night sky. "Celebrating Thanksgiving," I said simply. "With strangers." His tone sharpened. "Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to see our family's name plastered all over social media like you're hosting some circus?" I swallowed, heat rising in my chest. "They're not strangers. They're cousins, neighbors, friends you ignored, people you pretended didn't exist because they weren't good enough for your table." A beat of silence. Then he hissed, "We told you not to come this year because your sister's family needed space. She's been under pressure, Alyssa. She needed this holiday." I almost laughed, a bitter sound stuck in my throat. "So your solution was to erase me? To text me like I was a mistake you wished you hadn't made? Do you hear yourself?" "Watch your tone," he snapped, the old authority dripping from every syllable. The same authority that had once made me shrink, made me believe I was lesser. But not tonight. My eyes shifted to the children playing in the snow outside, their laughter carried in by the cold wind when the door opened. A life so full, so alive, nothing like the hollow throne my parents sat on. "You erased me first," I whispered. "All I did was remind you I'm still here." For the first time I heard my father falter. His breath hitched, sharp and uneven. Then through gritted teeth he said, "You'll regret this, Alyssa. Don't forget where you came from." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my reflection faint in the dark screen. And for the first time I realized something. He wasn't angry because I embarrassed him. He was angry because I proved I didn't need him. And maybe that was the real betrayal. The night wore on, and though the laughter inside my ranch grew louder, I couldn't shake the weight of my father's final words. "Don't forget where you came from." They weren't just a warning. They were a threat dressed as memory. I tried to drown it out, leaning into conversations, refilling glasses, hugging cousins I hadn't seen in years. But when the music quieted and the snow outside thickened, headlights cut across the driveway. A pair of beams slicing through the mountain dark. My chest tightened. The door creaked open. And there stood Rachel, my sister. Wrapped in her designer coat, hair perfect despite the snow, lips pressed into that familiar line of disapproval. The room stilled. People who had once bowed to her perfection now stared at her like she was an intruder. "Really, Alyssa?" she said, her voice sharp but low, the kind meant for public control. "This little stunt. Do you know what you've done to Mom and Dad tonight?" I didn't flinch. They did it to themselves. They cut me out. I didn't beg to be here. I just built something without them. Her eyes flicked around the room. The chandeliers, the sprawling table, the plates stacked high with food, the fire's glow dancing against stone. For a second, jealousy slipped through her mask. I saw it. Everyone did. You think money makes you better than us? She spat. I laughed softly. No. But it made me free. Free from begging for scraps of their love. Free from proving I was worth a seat. Behind her the wind howled. Inside silence stretched. Then Mia, brave, unapologetic Mia, stood. You've never invited us, Rachel. Not once. Tonight Alyssa did. That's the difference. Rachel's jaw tightened. She shifted, clearly uncomfortable under so many eyes that no longer admired her. She muttered something under her breath, then turned back to me. Dad says you've gone too far. He's going to fix this. You'll see. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The fire cracked louder as though filling the space she left behind. But her words lingered, chilling me more than the snow outside. My father wasn't done. And neither was I. The party dwindled after Rachel's stormy exit. Guests trickled out with hugs and whispered thanks, their footprints vanishing into fresh snow. By midnight, only embers glowed in the fireplace. I stood alone in the silence, staring at the phone on the counter. One new voicemail. From Dad. I pressed play. Alyssa. His voice was colder than the mountain air outside. This game you're playing, don't test me. Family loyalty isn't optional. You want to act like you're above us? Fine. But don't forget we still know everything about you. Where you came from. How much you owe. You wouldn't have that ranch if it weren't for what I did. The message ended, leaving me with a hollow ache in my chest. He wasn't just threatening me, he was rewriting history. Like always. But he'd slipped. You wouldn't have that ranch if it weren't for what I did. I knew my own success, every sleepless night, every contract signed, every deal fought for. My parents had nothing to do with it. But that message told me something else. They were hiding something. Maybe about the land. Maybe about me. I opened the drawer where I kept the file. The deed to the ranch, signed solely in my name. Proof of what I had built. My hands shook as I flipped through it, searching for cracks. And there it was. The original purchase transfer. Seller's name. An LC I didn't recognize, but underlined in faint ink, a last name I did. Turner. My mother's maiden name. The ranch hadn't come to me through chance alone. Somewhere in the shadows they'd been tied to it all along, yet they let me believe I had clawed my way here in defiance. But my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Noon. Don't tell anyone. I stared at the message, pulse racing. Either it was a trap or it was the key to everything my father had tried to bury. The fire cracked, sparks flying upward like tiny fragments of truth refusing to stay hidden. For the first time I realized my revenge wasn't just about exclusion anymore. It was about uncovering the lies that kept me caged my whole life. The mountains were silent the next day, the snow crunching under my boots as I made my way to the edge of town. Noon sharp. A diner with fogged-up windows sat waiting, its neon sign buzzing faintly against the pale sky. I pushed the door open, the bell chiming softly, and scanned the booths. A man waved me over. Early 50s, weathered face, flannel shirt. He slid a folder across the table before I even sat down. You don't know me, he said. Name's Carl Turner. Your mother's cousin. My throat tightened. Turner. The same name from the deed. He leaned closer. That ranch you think you bought clean? It wasn't just land. It was an inheritance. Your inheritance. They tried to hide it. Your grandfather left it in your name. Directly. Not Rachel's. Not your parents'. Yours. I blinked, stunned. My fingers trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were copies of documents. Old wills, trust records, a paper trail my parents had buried. Every line screamed the same truth. The ranch was never an accident. It was mine by right, chosen for me. Carl's eyes hardened. Your father knew. He signed off on the sale through that LC so you wouldn't see his name attached. He didn't want you to know you were the favored one. That you had something Rachel didn't. He's been covering it for years. My stomach turned. Memories rushed back. My father's constant criticism, my mother's silence, Rachel's crown polished at my expense. All while they held this secret, terrified I might realize I was never the lesser daughter. Carl's voice dropped. He's desperate now. people find out the truth, his control shatters. That's why he's trying to scare you off. I closed the folder slowly, my reflection in the glossy pages colder than I'd ever seen it. My parents hadn't just excluded me from dinner. They had excluded me from my own legacy. For the first time in my life, the power tilted. Not toward them. Toward me. When I left the diner, snow whipped against my cheeks. My phone buzzed again. Dad calling. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because for once I finally held the one thing he could never take back. Proof. And I knew exactly how to use it. I drove back up the mountain with the folder on the passenger seat, the weight of it heavier than gold. For years my father's voice had defined me. Cutting, dismissive, controlling. But tonight his words would echo back at him. By dusk I posted a single photo. Me standing on the ranch balcony, snow falling softly around me, the deeds spread open in my hands. The caption was short, sharp. Turns out I was chosen all along. Within minutes the calls exploded. My father. My mother. None of which I answered. Instead I let silence become my weapon. The truth had already spoken louder than I ever could. By morning the extended family chat was on fire. Cousins were sending screenshots, aunts were messaging me privately, whispers spreading faster than snowmelt in spring. Everyone knew. And with every person who learned, the throne my parents had built around Rachel cracked a little more. Finally a text came from Dad. We need to fix this. Please. One word stopped me cold. Please. The first time he had ever used it with me. I stared at the message, heart calm, steady. Then I typed my reply. There's nothing to fix. I don't need a seat at your table anymore. I built my own. And it's full. I put the phone down, looked out at the mountains and felt something I had been denied my entire life. Peace. For once I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the unwanted guest, the mistake to be erased. I was the heir. The builder. The one who had taken betrayal and turned it into a crown. And with that my story was finally